All right, the walls are out. I said an hour, hour and a half. It probably took me about an hour, more or less. Relatively easy, the way that I talked about, hammering out sections and pulling out sections at a time. It's still a mess. Durock is very messy by its very nature when it breaks up from everything that adheres it. I want to talk about also CPVC. I know I mentioned it earlier. A lot of people get mixed up, when I don't specify, so I'm going to specify. CPVC, that pipe that I talked about that's garbage, has a yellow tint. It has this yellow label on it and all that stuff, so that's how you're going to know. PVC is completely white and it doesn't have all this label and all that stuff. I wanted to make that clear because sometimes people are like, "Oh, I got CPVC," when you really don't, because sorry, my phone. When you really don't, because of that difference, that little yellow tint. Anyway, getting back to the project at hand now is to get this tub out. So there's no right or wrong way to get one of these fiberglass tubs out. You could use a circular saw, which I do sometimes, to start your cut. You could use an angle grinder, although I don't know why. I usually default to one of these, longer blade sawzall, and I'll just cut it usually down the middle when I can get it out in two pieces. In this case, as I mentioned, my stairway is really, really narrow. Well, there are two of them, so I'm going to have to get it out in like 3 or 4 pieces. So I'm going to start down here at the end, because once you get down to the end, you can kind of manipulate everything around and all that stuff. Plus, I know that there's a plug-in over here because there's a access panel on the other side, so the motor is going to be somewhere in this area. So I'm just going to start here, so I can get rid of the motor and get a little bit of wiggle room. Once I get this section out, I can actually pull this out of where it's at and cut it a lot easier and get away from all that piping over there because the water is turned back on. But yeah, the fun part begins.
So this process is relatively easy. As you see, I'm using a sawzall with different sized blades depending on what area I'm cutting. The only thing you have to be careful of is not to cut too close to where the piping is. You'll see where I'm probably about 1.5 feet off of that other side of the wall, and then cutting out this little flange, because usually it's nailed into 2x4s and stuff like that. And then the motor is right below here, so there's a certain point where I transition to smaller blade. You could use any cutting tool that you want to. Reciprocating saw is what I choose, but it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, you're getting rid of all this stuff anyway, so you can't really ruin anything. The only thing you have to, as I said, be careful of is any type of plumbing, and that's why I'm so far off of this wall here, because I don't want to get anywhere close to that. And then you just push all these pieces around and they'll fall apart in your hand, and then you can get the whole thing outside. So you do need to wear a mask though, because again, the dust from this fiberglass would not be good for you to breathe. So that's about the best advice I can give you on getting rid of a fiberglass tub. And then of course gloves too, because it will cut you. So yeah, glove up and mask up.
Alright, it is day 2. I got all the trash out to the truck and packed everything up and went out to Home Depot and got all my material, unpacked that into the garage, and now I'm ready to get started. So first and foremost, going forward with a tub to shower conversion, 2 things have to happen, and I do my plumbing very first day, which basically is today, and so I'm going to move my drain from where it's currently at to here. I got lucky in this case because I don't have to do a reduction from the 1.5 to 2 inch for my shower drain, which is 1.5. So a tub is always 1.5. I don't have to do that, a reducer, because the drain, the 2-inch drain, runs this direction, almost under where I have to transition. Well, say transition, where I have to bring my P-trap up into the surface. So I got really, really lucky on that one. You can see there's a 2-inch drain down here below where it reduces to 1.5, and so all I have to do is cut back. And I never use the old P-trap because I don't know what kind of condition it's in, how much junk is in there over 20 years, so I always use a new P-trap. So basically, I went from the very front to the very back, and I did center line, and I went from the side to the side, and I did center line. And so this is where my drain will be eventually, right here in this area, which is we center. Now, having said that, because you're going to be walking in from this side, opposite toilet, you could theoretically do a linear drain down here, a 24 or a 30-inch drain down here. The problem is, because I've run into this over and over when people want a linear drain. First of all, linear drains are kind of disgusting. They have the trough kind of runs at a very slight angle off both sides, and that trough gets gunked up with all kinds of nasty stuff over the course of a month or 2 months or whatever. So you're constantly cleaning it, which is why most people don't like the linear drains. And then also your curb material, your mortar is going to be thicker and your tile is going to be thicker, so it will shorten the inside of your curb to about an inch or so, inch and a half at the top. And then as you run down, that curb visually gets bigger as you come down, so you have to be okay with that also. That being said, my customer opted for a center drain, which I'm going to do. I'm probably not going to show the cutting part and all that stuff. It's hard to set up my camera and all that stuff, but if you're a DIY or homeowner and you plan on doing this yourself, then you probably already have some type of dexterity with all of the equipment, all the tools and all that stuff, so there's no point in showing that. But I'm going to cut in here, and then I'm going to be able to cut off that 2-inch pipe and put a P-trap in there and get the drain set. I already have some 3/4 inch plywood to scab in this area, because I'm not going to use this old wood. Remember, I'm cutting that out, so I'm going to scab in a piece of plywood here, and once this is gone, I'll scab in, straighten up the cuts on here and scab in that, so that I will have the drain set. Then the next thing I'm going to do, most likely, oh, I got to get rid of this. Yeah, so this was for, remember, this is a jacuzzi tub, and a lot of times I give the option to put this outside of the shower somewhere. A lot of people will decline on that. They're just like, yeah, cut it off and put some wire nuts on it and just delete it. Or I can put it on the other side, but there's already an outlet on the other side, so it doesn't really matter. So I got to get rid of that. The next thing I'll do is put in some scabbing, 2x6 scabbing all around between these studs, so that my pan liner will have something to rest it up against. And once I'm done with the scabbing, then I'm going to cut off the water and get rid of all this spaghetti, because this is just a hot mess, as they say in the South. I'm going to keep this drop L, because there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, and these drop L's now cost, I think, about $8 or $9. It's ridiculous. So I'm going to keep that where it's at. It's a good height, the where it's at, but I'll probably cut it down to about here and put in my new valve. I got a Delta valve at Home Depot, and put it right here, and then I'll just rework all this plumbing over to here. Another thing too, I try and maximize the depth and width and everything with a shower the best I can. By code, from any solid surface, you have to be 32 inches total. So that's 16 on center of the toilet, right? 16 on center of the toilet to any hard surface, which arguably the shower is going to be a hard surface, because there'll probably be some glass here eventually. So I have about 2.5 more inches that I could get depth out of this shower. Arguably another square foot, and we're definitely 16 from the vanity. So I really want to cut this tile out. I want to get my angle grinder, mark a line here, and cut this 2 extra inches out for a couple of reasons. Not just to get to the depth, but also they're not going to be able to do. They will be able to do a frameless shower door setup. The door would be here, and I'm going to scab up and put some more 2x4 in here, so they'll have something solid to drill into should they decide, the shower door will be swinging on this way. But also they need a couple of bolts to go into this side, and I don't have enough room to put in a 2x4, because usually I always scab out a 2x4 on this side as well, but my curb is going to be 3.5 inches to here. My curb is a 2x4, so it's going to be here. So when the shower guy comes along, when the shower glass guy comes along, he's going to have to put some anchors, and hopefully miss this, but he's going to have to put some anchors in here in order to hold that panel. Now, having said that, the panel is usually resting on some shims on the bottom, and it's caulked in, and arguably it's not holding any weight vertically. This panel of glass is not holding any weight. So I'm kind of crossing my fingers on that. I was trying to talk my customer into expanding this out because I knew that we had 2 or 3 inches more that we could get on this, and she declined. She said she wants it the same exact setup, the same exact footprint it is now. So unfortunately, against my better judgment of not only getting the shower bigger, but also getting something girthy in there for the shower glass guy to screw into, I'm not going to be doing that. So yeah, after I get the scabbing in and the curb in, which is 3 2x4s, and get the shower valve out and get the drain in, that will basically be the end of my day. Tomorrow I'll be pouring the pan, putting the pan liner, pouring the pan, getting that screeded out and all that stuff. So I'll show the steps along the way for any of you that are interested. When I come off of camera and do my cuts, I'll show what I've done. All right, as I get deeper into this, it gets more complicated. So I managed with a short blade on a battery powered Sawzall, because, you know, they're shorter than the electric one. I managed to cut off the excess pipe, but it goes back too far. Well, it goes back where it needs to be. But if I put on the extension pipe and a coupler, then it's hitting. You see how it's hitting this 2x4? And this 2x4 is part of this truss thing. If I could get rid of that to where it would sit, because this pipe is kind of going down. The main pipe is going down. It's not going up high enough. So that becomes a problem too. So I'm just going to cut. It probably won't hurt anything. One little 3 or 4 inch cut. Because if I get rid of that and I'm flush with the rest of the sheetrock down there, yeah, I think I'm good. I doubt the house is going to fall down just because that's cut out. I'm kidding, of course. I would never do that. I would never do that. So let me tell you what I came up with. The extension will go further than what I need it, which will, so these are adjustable, as I said before. This part here is adjustable. You know, it can go that way, it can go this way, all the way around, backwards if you wanted it to, just about. So I adjusted it to this direction. If I can do it with one hand. Can't do it with one hand. Yeah, I can. So I adjusted it to that direction, which gets me all the distance that I need with the coupler on there to reach the main pipe, even with the angle that it has. The only issue is now that my P-trap has an angle, but I can adjust that accordingly. I can adjust that when it glues in. And then my line is right here, and that's going to go back further as I glue it, so it's going to go right up to the edge of there. That little 1 inch distance will be closed, and then it'll be perfect with my center line. Yeah. It'll be perfect-ish with this center line also. It'll be about 2 inches off from center of this direction, but you got to pick your poison, you know? You got to pick your poison. Alright, I basically have it, I have it down pat. So, as I said, this little, I keep saying little, this big ass 7-8 inches span, you know, from going center out to that direction, throws off my center. And as I said before, you have to pick your poison. You know, so I'm good. 16 to there, 16 to there, perfect. And the perfect that I wanted to get with this line, I'm now, if you see where my finger's at to the drain, about 7 or 8 inches. So I'm 37 inches to there, and I'm 23 inches from there to there. So it's off. And I don't like that. It really bugs me a lot. When I do the shower pan mortar and all that stuff in the tile, it will be very slimly noticeable. I mean, yeah, you'll notice that it's not center and all that stuff, but I've had to do that in a pinch before, and this is definitely the pinch that I don't want to get into. My feeling was, when I saw the P-trap down here for the tub, my feeling was that this drain ran all the way down center, and then at some point out here turned or something like that. I didn't expect it to turn midway, which is unfortunate, because had it been like this, I would have been perfect on center to have it come right up here both directions. But as it stands now, yeah, a little bit off, not bad. And then the next thing, this pipe, and this is a little spare pipe that I had from this section that was here, is not going to reach. I get the drain in probably about half an inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch, but I have a good part of an inch, inch and a quarter to seat that properly, and I like it seated properly. So unfortunately this pipe won't work. Unfortunately, I'm going to kind of stop what I'm doing there. I'm going to get the plywood and scab in some 2x4s here, some 2x4s. I clean that straight, and I'm going to kind of cover these areas, except for a circular cut I'm going to make here for the drain eventually, and then move on to all this other stuff. But as far as putting the drain cap on and all that stuff, yeah, I can't do that right now. I have to see what I have in the truck, since I don't throw nothing away, and I'm crossing my fingers. Hey, if you enjoyed that video and you learned something, consider being a Patreon member. $5, $10, $15 a month would help me greatly produce more videos. I make nothing from YouTube at all. If you're going to call me for advice, please donate $50 for 30 minutes. My link to my PayPal and my Patreon account is down below. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell so you get immediate notifications as soon as I post videos. And thank you very much for your support.